4 o'clock, board members will call the meeting to order. First item is our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you read our mission statement?
The mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
And I don't have control there. I've lost control.
Where's Pointer?
No, I've been there for 42 years. That's a long time ago. Thank you. And I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Bill. I second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. Disapproved. Moving on to presentation, curriculum. Welcome.
Yep, you're up. Gretchen and Nikki are here today to talk a bit about a curriculum that we implemented. We started this fall, right, Gretchen?
Yep.
Something we kind of talked about off and on. Pretty excited about having this opportunity. So.
Thank you very much for having us here. Like Jeremy said, last spring when COVID hit, we were in a little bit of a panic because we didn't have any curriculum that was current for employability skills and my work-based learning class. And for some of our kids that are in the careers class, that kids that struggle with those career classes, like our special ed students at the high school, some of the EL students with that struggle with reading, that kind of thing. So I contacted Jeremy and I had found this curriculum online, and I contacted Jeremy to see if there was any chance that there was still money in the budget to get the curriculum. And of course there wasn't in the spring, but I contacted the service cooperative, Gail Polieski and Tom Hoff, and talked to them and was hoping that we could consider reaching out to some of the area schools to see if there were other districts that were struggling with getting some transition curriculum for special ed teachers out there. And we did, they were willing to do that for us. There was, they started a pilot program with Next Up. Jeremy and I had been part of a webinar with the director of Next Up, and he was willing to do that for the service co-op. And so we were one of the 5 districts that were chosen to do the pilot this year. And I was very relieved because it's an amazing curriculum.
Gretchen, if you're comfortable taking your mask off and talk about the people,
Sure.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
It's hard to talk with that on.
Okay. Next up is transition curriculum, like I said, for teachers and students. It's very engaging. It's web-based. It's video links that are sent to us each week. So if you purchase the curriculum, you get access to the online curriculum, and each week a new lesson is sent to you. And with it, you get the video, you get very detailed lesson plans, rubrics, any supporting documents that would relate to that topic. And it all works to build their social skills and their work skills. So it's pretty amazing. The lessons, like I said, are posted weekly. They provide pre-employment and on-the-job training for students. The content is aligned through social skills, social emotional standards, which I love because that's my area of expertise, and also with jobs and job training standards. And let's see. Yeah, and it follows a scope and sequence where you have there's an introduction, all the standards are given to you, there's vocabulary that you follow. It's very scripted, which I love. Some of the topics that we work on, the foundations of working is where we start. Independent living skills, job application, or preparing for the job search, job applications, job interviewing, on-the-job skills, preparing for the job search, community-based skills, money management, and cross-curricular activities. Those are that's the whole curriculum that they send you throughout the year. We have focused in my program this year on the foundations of working, but we've spent a lot of time just on preparing for the job search, job applications, job interviews. We've spent the bulk of our time on that, just because we use a lot of, we've taken a much slower pace. The curriculum itself is written at like a 5th grade level. So it's perfect for the DCD students and the ASD students that I work with. And it's just the videos are just easy to use. They're very engaging. There's TikTok videos that are clipped in with them. So the students really enjoy watching. That was very helpful when we were in distance learning because they can access them. Everything is given to you so you can share it with the students and they can fill it in and send it back to you. So it's just very user-friendly, especially when we were in distance learning. So that was one of the best parts about it for us. We currently use it at the high school, and like I said, in employability skills and work-based learning. Students that plan to attend Project Search, so our like 5th year students, we're using it to prepare them for the interviews that they have to do while they're at Project Search for the initial interview, and then through the interviews as they go into each of the different rotations that they do. And then we also use it, Christy Steinbach is using it with the EL students at the high school. And then Maytech is using it both in both special ed settings. So Dave and Nikki both use it. So that's me, right? Yeah.
All right. So as Gretchen pointed out, at Maytech, we have kind of traditional special ed setting that Dave Wingert teaches. That's most of your students with specific learning disabilities, or they're pulled from the general ed classroom a smaller amount of time. And then my setting 3, which is primarily I have right now. Normally, you see a lot of students that have behavioral issues for a lot of reasons. So some of them are emotional behavioral. Do have some DCD students as well. What we love about it is pretty much everything. One of the fun things, as Gretchen talked about, is she started in the fall. And so she saw the curriculum get pushed out incrementally as it was written throughout the year. We'll talk about later. They also give you 2 years worth of curriculum. So you could say, okay, what were you doing in 2019? Let's see if that's a little more relevant. I like it because Dave and I didn't start till the spring. So we had even more time retrospectively to look back and see what matched with how we were learning. Gretchen's students and my students look very different in their reading levels right now. I tend to have some higher level students that don't have a lot of patience. And so Gretchen's students love the videos. Mine will vote against the videos at times, but everything is so easy for us to align to what our students need. So guided notes, for instance, they can be super challenging where there is no support and you have to be listening and following along, versus down to a 50-50, which is the best choice here, whatever is appropriate for the reading level of the students that we're working with. And it's easy to discreetly level that without students being aware of what's best for them to make that discreet and respect their privacy that way. In the past, we were kind of cobbling together lots of different transition materials from other professionals out there. So to have something that's streamlined is unique and fantastic in that way. And as far as it being relevant, talking with students about what it's like to have a job and being asked to be masked in that job and talking through those things as far as the social emotional piece and when you get frustrated, how to appropriately talk to your boss. It's relevant stuff as opposed to, sometimes in the past we're going through curriculum and we're talking about buying a DVD and then we have to explain what a DVD is. So not becoming a history lesson when we're trying to be relevant about teaching. So talking about what was hard about distance learning and what worked for me in distance learning, talking about how to have a schedule. So being as incredibly relevant as possible has just been fantastic for us, and it's built in there. The SEL piece is just fantastic. My students spent a lot of time working on, again, those social emotional skills on how we handle rejection in the interview process and how we wait patiently and explaining that sometimes it takes 6 weeks for a manager to get back to us. And is it okay to call back again? And can we call every day? Is that appropriate? Down to minute details like we shouldn't be there 25 minutes early for our interview. We talk about how strange would it be if I was at Maytech hanging out with Ms. Peterson and Shonda for 30 minutes of a class waiting for an interview, that would get strange, whereas 5 minutes is more appropriate. So working through those pieces has been helpful. I also appreciate that in the past, traditionally, it was on special education teachers to remember and to integrate being very straightforward about what is transition. And if many of you have been in IEP meetings with me, talking about this transition from life in high school to after and what that looks like. And do we have those skills, whether that's accessing the community, knowing how to apply for a job, what kind of school and what school will look like, or the military. And it's part of a very fast, very sometimes emotionally loaded meeting once a year. And then at the end, we have a summary of performance. And those are our big times to really discuss transition. And that's just simply not enough. This curriculum integrates and explains what IDEA is, what ADA is, what their rights are as they transition from being a young adult to a student, and that they can share part or some of their plan with an employer, how to talk about supports that they need at work or in an educational setting afterwards, and giving them that vocabulary and taking that straight on and allowing them to ask questions and really arming them with the information that they need to discuss and to know what their rights are beyond high school. So I appreciate that they are structured about it and that we give them time to reflect and discuss and ask questions and really know how to tackle life after high school. I talked about comparing the years, and then we can move on to the next slide here. So the benefits that we see, I've worked on the para side of supporting a student through a careers class, as well as the teacher side. And it can be a stressful, frustrating time for our students that are, if the vocabulary and the reading level is getting ahead. So I really appreciate that I see my students, and I think you'd agree, are more comfortable. The pacing is appropriate. We have more control over controlling that pacing and having those quality discussions about what we need to know and what we do know for life after high school. And then that leads into, I'm seeing my students be more confident and expecting success. A lot of them are sharing, they are working for the first time as things kind of open up, and talking about those jobs and customers and talking through those real life situations. So having time for that built in and being appropriate has been helpful. I talked about at Maytech right now, my students are a little faster paced than Gretchen's, and I have that control over that. And then you're going to see in the last slide here, we were joking about it before, my favorite lesson Gretchen chose as one of her favorite examples. And it talks about the title of the whole unit is How to Ruin a Job Prospect in the Interview Process. So it's basically like a what not to do lesson. Amanda got to sit on some of that fun, and they did a fantastic job. One of the things that was most interesting is that everybody knew that being on phones at any point of the process was inappropriate. And that was their number one thing that they knew was a no-no. So that was interesting to me. But my students were more willing to interact, break out in groups, create posters, and talk through that process of what not to do in the interview process. And they did a fantastic job. Again, it was relevant. It was things like one of the scenarios was this kid went to the gym and worked out and then proceeded to drive around every fast food place in town to ask. And they were immediately disgusted and picked up on the social skills piece of, no, we shower before we go and talk to people about jobs. So they did a fantastic situation there. So I just find that it's relevant, it's engaging, it gets my kids up and out of their seat, gets them moving, they're thoughtful. And that hopefulness piece, I'm really glad that you included about, I can do this and I have the skills to do this and speak confidently.
And then just a few of the things that I found that were just meaningful this was one of my favorite ones that we did with the students that I have. They're given like a task board and they had to do these tasks at home with their parents, and their parents had to sign off, and they had to complete a timesheet. So they had to fill out the timesheet, and their supervisor or their parent had to initial that they had done it. They had to do their time in, time out, talk about what the task was that they did. Just gives them some practice on doing a timesheet. We did parts of a paycheck so they know what each of the different areas are that they need to be aware of. This was the how to ruin the job opportunity, one of the case studies. That was the other thing that we talked about. We really like some of the prompts the journal prompts they give us, and then just some of these scenarios that are just make it easy for discussions and that kind of thing. That is it. Thank you very much.
Any questions? I guess we didn't talk about, you had said excellent customer service, and that truly is the case. Gretchen's on a first name basis with Corey.
Yes.
Who designed this software and came out of our field. So, you appreciate it when it's someone who's been in the world with you of education there. And I've been able to be part of some of the webinars with support, things like that. And they really are accessible. They're right there. I felt comfortable interacting with the co-op or even with the producers of this curriculum.
There are 5 other districts.
We're 5, so there's 4 other districts, and I can't remember. A couple south of us.
So do you network at all?
We haven't been able to. I missed one of the first opportunities, but you had been on one of them.
There was some networking support.
Yeah. So what they did was, for those of us that had been using it at the beginning of the year, they sent the link out for the webinar for those that hadn't been using it. So I didn't get on that, but I'm hoping that we can afford to do it next year. We're trying our hardest to continue on with the service co-op and trying to come up with some funds.
What's the cost?
What was that?
What is the cost?
I think it's $2,500
per year?
For the year. But that gives Maytech access, it gives us access, and any teacher can use it then in the district.
I would think there would be special ed funding for that.
You would think. It's very.
I really mean that.
Yeah.
It should be in the special ed budget.
It is. It's very. It's a wonderful curriculum for our high school students. I know that we will be able to consider putting more students that are on the job track for post-secondary if we were to continue having the curriculum. Otherwise, they would be on the careers course, which is more difficult. It's a lot more challenging for our students just because of the rigor of the course. The pacing of it is just a lot more challenging.
Piece. I like equipping my students with how to talk about.
So was this designed specifically for special needs?
Yes, it was. So Corey, the designer, was a former transition teacher like myself, and then he also partnered with a vocational rehab coordinator. So some of the people that we coordinate with for our students beyond high school, some of the other organizations, and they developed it together. And it was not, the reason that Corey did this was because there is nothing out there at all for, even when you're researching, like last spring, when I was researching, what am I going to do with my kids when we're distance learning? there's just not much out there at all. So it's very frustrating, especially when you're trying to find curriculum for social skills and all of the other classes that you're teaching. And so then I came across this, and they give you sample lessons for free. So I'm like, okay, I'll take as many as I can. And then I called Jeremy, I'm like, please, can we find some money? So yeah, and then we just kept bugging everybody we could think of to.
I look at the framework for the curriculum, the unit topics, and my granddaughter, senior, is taking the careers class, and I see some of this as being very apropos for that class.
Right.
Has that been shared?
Yes, Christy, they use it in some of the careers classes. So like the EL students, it's written, so EL students, it'd be a little bit easier for them because it's not, my students struggle a little bit with it. So we spend a lot more time on it and the pacing is much slower. Whereas the EL students, it would be at a level perfect for them. And for like Nikki and Dave's students.
There's a perk of this program. It covers the same topics they're covering in the regular careers class.
Right.
It's at a level that's
Yep.
reachable.
Yep, and that's the framework that all of
Same
the careers
standards.
classes.
Same standards.
Yep, right. With the social emotional piece plugged into it, which I really appreciate, just because, you know, working with students that have autism spectrum disorder, they're higher functioning, but they struggle with those social skills of how to get a job, how to keep a job. That's their biggest challenge in getting a job, quite honestly. So
With your excitement and, you know, the $2,500 is a minimum cost based upon what it's doing for kids.
right.
We need to fund this program because of the level of success.
And with next year, the one of the things, like, it's every year. I think that is the thing that's hard for, you know, we get how expensive it is. We also see the value of it. The thing that we really like about it, those of us that use it, is that there are 2 years of lessons provided. So like I have the lessons for this year, and then I can access online the lessons from last year. So if there was a lesson that I wanted to redo, like the hard skill and soft skill lesson, which is really, really important for my students, I use both. Like I'll go through and do all of both of them. So we can just keep going over it and over it, just because they need that repetition. And so
You have a high level of excitement for this because you're seeing success with the kids.
correct.
Based upon your prior experience. This has put stuff together for you.
Right. And it makes my job so much easier, just because I don't have to do all that time researching curriculum, putting it together. You know, it's been a huge time saver, just because of everything in this last year. We just don't have the time to do a lot of that. So
When you did the summative evaluation with the kids, what was their reaction? How did they feel about the experience?
So my students just really like that it's just very easy for them. We are doing the portfolio. We're designing the portfolios right now. So they have everything all together that they're going to need when they go on. Most of my students are juniors right now too. So as seniors, they're going to hopefully start doing some job exploration and that kind of thing. So they'll have like their resume done. They'll have a sample application, which was one of the things I just loved that they did. And next up, so they do a sample application for these kids, because they struggle with remembering their address, phone number, all of that when they get into those high stress situations. So they have the sample application that they keep in their portfolio, and then they just take that with them to to fill out job applications or to interview. Something that's so simple, like an accommodation for them, that helps them in that process.
And I would say my learners tend to be more hesitant. Amanda, you're welcome to jump in. So in that getting started piece, and what I've seen mostly is they feel safe, and they're more likely, it's accessible topics, and it's in bite-sized pieces that seem reasonable, and it's relevant. So I've seen that hesitancy fade away, and seen more willingness to interact, because it's right here, and it's hands-on, and it's not good luck, go make that portfolio, and I hope it looks great. It's sequential, and they feel supported, and then they have that time to share those SEL pieces, which are huge.
That's great.
I would agree. Some of the students that have taken the traditional careers class at Maytech that are now taking this, they're way more engaged in participating and becoming a part of actual learning. And it's the things and the skills that they need, versus maybe some of those bigger concepts that they might do in careers where they're trying to search whatever job they might be interested in. This brings it down to the level of kind of what they're already doing, and it brings that piece in so they're more comfortable sharing. Yeah.
You've given them skills to develop their confidence, basically.
Right.
Thank you guys for your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board forum, board members. Any reports?
Yeah, so Bond Oversight Committee met on March 17th, I think. Shortly after our last meeting, everything seems to be going on track for all of the building referendum. That's really exciting to see. I think we are going to try to do a tour of Southview after the meeting today. So all of that seems to be moving right along. And then I also, last year, we had the, where we were supposed to meet with a department or a section. So I did actually finally meet with, again, for this year with Tiffany Teskey with the early childhood program. So we had a nice 40-minute visit, what's going on with them and the planning moving forward to switch buildings and get everybody together. And it was really productive. Oh, Pride and the Tiger also met, I think it's been in the paper, they did their future grants, which are a huge benefit to all of the education facilities in Marshall, essentially. And then they're also setting everything up for the scholarship awards this spring. So fingers crossed that they'll be able to do something.
For the scholarships for kids?
Yeah. So some of that's still in flux with whatever happens with these numbers. But there's, Jeremy and I both attended their meeting today.
How much money is available for scholarships for kids? Do you
I
know?
don't know that it's been completely set yet.
130?
It'll be a very generous amount.
Yeah. Which is just great.
Good. Anybody else? Finance? Info on the childcare update. Jeremy.
Do you have the controls, Trisha? No, you can click for me. Just want to share a little bit of an update with the task force and the child care and what we've been working on there. Our next meeting on April 19th would be our the meeting we said we'd make a decision. So I want to share with you guys kind of the conversations we've had and where we're at with that. So the first, and go on the next slide. Just want to share a few of the conversations. We've had some additional conversations that we've been looking at, a number of different ideas that have been brought forward and considerations that we've taken into consideration, I guess, and things that we talked about. Really, our focus with all these different pieces has been at the board table. What I heard is we're looking for a long-term, a viable solution going forward. So with each of these different things, thinking what is the long-term solution here, a possible solution with each of the areas. Go on the next slide. The first thing that we've looked at was specific to community services. So we had a lot of conversation around, is there a benefit in community services operating the daycare instead of the school district or in conjunction with the school district? The thought behind that was that there would probably be some savings with payroll, that sort of thing. And really what we found is the city's pay structure is very similar to ours. So probably not a lot of savings there. There's no additional revenue or expense savings by switching to community services. So we really haven't found a long-term solution with the community services partnership conversation. A number of conversations with the mayor and the city administrator and what have you with that piece. Another piece that we've looked at or talked about is financial support from a corporate partner. We've had a few different businesses that have been part of the conversation, have attended different meetings and conversations with them. Great to have their support and hear their input on things. This time we haven't had a proposal or anything come forward from that conversation. A big thing that came forward, on the next slide, that came forward in the meeting that we had with Jessica Beyer from First Children's Finance was about some revenue and expense restructuring within the daycare, looking at how we bill, for example. So instead of doing the daily fees, doing a weekly fee and probably some increased fees with that, looking at increasing our enrollment, especially in our after school room. And some of the suggestions around that, we're looking at additional marketing, some parent aware ratings so that could help draw lower income families to be able to attend our daycare. One of the concerns that I have with that one that kind of been part of the conversation is just the reality of the outcome of that one is unknown. What does that really look like? So some pieces with that one is still, I'm left with questions, and I think that was the feeling kind of in our conversation, was not sure exactly how long it would take for those to take effect, or if we would really realize some of the things there. So then on the next slide, we'll look at private centers, privatizing the daycare, private centers. This is a conversation we've had ongoing with local childcare centers exploring this option. We've had conversations with other center owners from town. I know that a couple of them at least have worked with both the city, talked with city administration, with the mayor. They've talked with the chamber and kind of what that would look like. And I know that they've been working with Jessica from First Children's Finance on what a financial model looked like for them. And we have had one of the local centers come forward with a proposal to take over the daycare and run the daycare. So that's kind of where we're at with that piece. And their proposal on the next slide, it's what they've offered is to purchase the equipment, furniture that's existing in the daycare that we have. They would sublease our current facility, and we would work on, they need to figure out staffing, licensing, because the license, even though it's licensed as daycare now, would have to be switched to licensing under them. And then of course enrollments, would current families stay or would they not? So some pieces to work out that would determine the ultimate date that they would transfer that. Start looking at a target date of July 1st yet with that conversation. And then we need to have some conversations. The proposal was recently made and we haven't had a lot of conversations yet. So I wanted to today just present to you that this has come forward. Next week, at our next board meeting on the 19th, I look at some more, walk through some more details, and like to kind of consider this proposal as an option. Certainly some timelines would have to work with them and be flexible, even though July 1st might be our target date. Look at when does staffing all transfer, how long does it take to get the license in place and have their enrollments lined up and such. So I think we could be flexible with that. To go to the last slide then, Trisha, I feel like that proposal at this point, it seems to be the most viable long-term solution. I feel like that would be our direction to go from the different options we've considered. Again, that the next board meeting, the 19th, we'll talk more about details, and I anticipate we'll be asking you to authorize us to enter negotiations with that other center at that time. Any questions you guys have tonight on the daycare?
Thank you for all of the meetings you've had with all the different players you've mentioned here. I know you've had several.
We've had a number of meetings and a lot of support, especially with the city and the chamber. I'll call out a lot of support from them to want to see those seats continue in town and finding some solutions to make that happen.
Okay. Moving on to our reviews of policies 530, 534, 540. Any comments?
Just call out the one that's new in here as we looked at is the service animals. It's not something we've had yet, but something that we're looking at just having a policy in place for that should come up at some point. So that one is a new policy for us to consider.
Okay. On to our action items, authorization to advertise and hire additional 0.5 FTE teacher position. Motion. Any further discussion?
Just share with that one. As Deanna and I are working on the budget for next year, we've had a number of retirements come in this year, and looking at staffing at different buildings, trying to maintain the number of seats that we have for elective courses at the high school. There's a realignment with music teachers between buildings and how we're doing that now, but we feel like this additional staff will be really important to keep those seats full and have elective opportunities for the kids at all of our locations.
Any other comments? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Approval of the amended Southwest Central Agreement. Motion to approve. Need a second. It's open for discussion.
With this one at our last board meeting, you guys approved our service co-op contract for next year, and there was an adjustment that came forward. The formula with the speech language that we used was just incorrect, so they fixed that. And it's a savings about $5,000 over the original contract.
Savings for us, huh?
Savings for us, yeah.
Very good. Any questions? Call for vote, please. It is approved. Move to close meeting. Motion to close meeting. Need a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, meeting is closed. Oh, we got to call for a vote. I'm sorry. Meeting's closed. Reconvene. Motion to reconvene. Need a second.
I'll second.
Please vote. The meeting is now open. Consideration and potential action related to resolution of expulsion. Motion to approve this. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes. And now it's time for a tour. If anybody wants to take a tour.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you.